This is a story that I had written up a while ago, but I had been very hesitant to post it. It's just something that was really embarrassing, to be honest, and it seems so incredibly lame to look back on it. At the time, though, it totally freaked me out. Yet, I still have no real explanation for what really happened. There's no blood, there's no gore, there's no sharp teeth, nor razor-sharp claws. No one died, and no one got injured. So it just didn't seem like that great a story, right? But I can't stop thinking about it, and I hope that someone might be able to shed some light on what happened. This was around the time of my encounter with Gurgles and Bugman. I can't recall exactly if it was before or after. Just like that story, I had totally forgotten about this until my parents recently mentioned it to me in passing. It could be that the two events might even be related. This would have been around when I was 5 or 6 years old. Back then, my parents would drop me off at school early so they could start their days at the factory they worked in. After classes finished, I would walk myself back home, and I'd have around an hour to myself before my parents returned. They would check in on me. They'd make a quick dinner before leaving again for a shift at their second job, where they would clean up after patrons at the local cinema. From the time they left me until the time they returned shortly after midnight, they would make sure to lock all the doors and windows to the house. So, it was totally normal and quite safe, really, for me to be at home at night by myself. More often than not, the TV would not be working, so I would amuse myself with the random assorted knickknacks in my room. As my parents were not wealthy, I had to create my own toys. Things like building fortresses out of empty matchboxes for my makeshift Voltron, an odd collection of toy cars held together with rubber bands and popsicle sticks to destroy. I'm a little hazy on the exact plot back then, but I knew my Voltron liked to destroy things. Most of the time, though, these nights would be fairly uneventful. But one night, as I was playing, I heard a strange sound. It was coming from the other side of the house. It was this faint, scraping sound. It lasted about a second. I peeked out the door of my bedroom, down the dark hallway, which led to the kitchen around the corner. But I saw nothing out of place. I continued playing. A few moments later, I heard the scraping sound again. While the lights were off in the rest of the house, the light from my bedroom spilled far enough down the hallway that I still had decent visibility. There was still nothing I could see that was making that noise, though. I stopped playing, and I continued staring out down that hallway. The noise started up again, slightly louder, and with a faster pace. Scrape, scrape, scrape. And on it went. Suddenly, at the end of the hallway, a silvered helium balloon levitated into view. It seemed half deflated, in the way that it was slightly scrunched up. It floated lazily, halfway up in the air, with a string loosely hanging down below it. Scrape. I watched as the balloon bobbed forward, tugging the string lightly as it lurched, and then letting it slacken again. Scrape, scrape, bobbed forward again until the shiny glint of a metal washer tied to the other end of the string could be seen. Scrape, scrape. With each pull, the washer would scrape along the floor. That's what was producing the sound. Scrape, scrape. I was staring in total fascination at this balloon. Where had it come from? My parents could never afford a treat like this. How was it moving? At that age, the world did seem just that much more magical. As I watched it, it slowly began rotating towards me. On its front was printed the face of a clown. It had these totally exaggerated features, comically large black eyes, a dark red ball for a nose, and giant blue lips fixed into an exaggerated frown. Or at least, it would have been comical, if not for the way its features were distorted and collapsed due to the balloon being partially deflated. In the partial light in that hallway, it looked positively sinister. Scrape, scrape. It had stopped rotating now and started to move down the hallway towards me. Scrape, scrape. Something felt very wrong, and a feeling of panic began to set in. Scrape, scrape, scrape. It was now about a third of the way down the corridor. Its painted eyes seemingly locked onto mine. I wanted to react, but I was frozen to the spot. Scrape, scrape. I came to my senses, and I began throwing at it various things that were within my reach. My hands were shaking so badly that they were wide off the mark and ended up just hitting the side walls. Scrape, scrape. My next few shots were closer, but I could swear it seemed to be dodging some of the particularly near misses. Maybe it was just the air turbulence as the objects whizzed past it. Scrape, scrape. I managed to get hold of a jar of marbles from a nearby shelf. I poured some out, and I threw a handful all at once towards the approaching balloon. One managed to hit it at the top of its head, sending it floating backwards a few inches with a thwack sound. It gently rose back up, with a crease between its eyebrows where I'd hit it. If anything, it now looked even more angry and malevolent. Scrape. It darted forward, more quickly now, towards me. You know, it's ridiculous. Christ's sake, it's just a freaking balloon, and a half-filled one at that, right? I mean, seriously, how was it going to hurt me? And yet, I felt with great certainty. No, I knew that whatever it was there to kill me. Scrape. Crying, I got up and I slammed the door to my room before it could reach me. Scrape, scrape. I sat with my back to the door, pushing against it as hard as I could. I could hear the balloon rubbing against the door and the washer jingling on the tiles below. After a few minutes of this, it all suddenly went quiet, save for the sounds of my sobbing. I spent the entire rest of that night sitting up against the door until I had finally fallen asleep. It wasn't until after midnight that I was woken up again by my parents pushing on the door to check up on me. Oh, they chewed me out for making a mess in the hallway and almost tripping them over with the loose marbles everywhere. I told them about what I saw. They were rightfully skeptical, but they still searched the house with me. We found no trace of it, of course. The doors and the windows were still shut and locked, just as they should have been. It was not until the following morning, after I cleaned up the rest of the hallway, that I found that piece of string, still attached to that metal washer, sitting in a corner. I showed it to my parents during breakfast, and they just told me it was my overactive imagination. They thought I had probably made it for my toy collection at some point, but I certainly never had. Besides, there was no balloon, deflated or not, to be found anywhere. As part of my ongoing punishment, they made me walk to school that day. Who knows? Maybe they were right. Maybe it was something I had created out of pure imagination. Like houses made of matchboxes and a Voltron out of rubber bands and sticks. Or maybe I had just fallen asleep and dreamed all of it. All I knew was that in my pocket was this infernal piece of string, looped around a washer that I was genuinely terrified of. I knew I had to get this thing as far away from me as I could. Being a kid, the furthest place I knew and could easily get to was a large parkland just beyond the school. That afternoon, I took a detour there on the way home, and I threw that thing as far as I could over the trees. I never even thought about that thing again, until just recently, when I was reminded. But I never did see anything like it again. I don't know if it still lies there on the ground, or if it's dangling from some branch, or whether whatever force controlled it found its way to some other home. Ever since I've remembered it, I've been trying to hunt down more information about whatever it was. I've not found anything online or through people I've chatted with. I'm borderline obsessed with trying to understand what I saw. It's for that reason I've decided to share the story here, along with all my others. I would love to hear from you if you've ever encountered whatever this thing was, and to say that I'm sorry. With the benefit of hindsight, I do wonder if I did the right thing. Maybe I should have disposed of it more thoroughly. Maybe putting it into a jar and burying it deep down, or finding some fire or river to throw it into. What would be the equivalent of Mount Doom for a 6-year-old? I can't help but feel that rather than getting rid of it, perhaps all I did was set it free.